Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the EmpowerMAN podcast. We are just rolling along here. It is a Thursday afternoon. We are filming this live from the free state of Florida. Greg is in the somewhat free state of Connecticut. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all having a great week. I'm looking at this guy in front of me, and I see nothing but pure man. This guy is a pillar. He is a founding father. I think if Abraham Lincoln and George Washington met Greggy T, he'd definitely have his face on some type of currency in this country. He's my friend. He's your friend. He's the patriot, the parent, the champion of the Second Amendment, but more importantly, a huge advocate of TRT. Greg A. Tedora, number one. Greggy T, you're looking very testosterone driven, sir.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Highly caffeinated.
Yes, coming off the Derby. Okay, coming off Christy Gnome's dog experience. And a friend of mine sent me this today. You'll appreciate this. A little bit about the economy. Okay.
Oh.
Awesome. Let's see. Tax burden by state in 2024. So you have the lowest tax burden and the highest. And it's the percent of personal income paid towards state and local taxes. And it has the whole country. Okay. And you're sitting pretty at 6.1, one of the lowest ones in the country. And I happen to be at 10.1 at Connecticut, which is right next to New York, which is at 12%, which is the highest. And then comes California. So, yeah, man. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Well,
save your money.
Well, look, you're knowing your money's probably funding some protest somewhere at some college campus is kind of comforting. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
just let me imagine trying to get to class. Just let me go to class. Come on.
Well, like we always say, why don't you go over there if you have it so bad here? Why don't you just go over there and experience that?
Go right ahead, please.
You know,
go.
So always praying for our friends in Israel. And I also want to give a shout out to our cops, our firemen and women, our EMTs, our policemen and women, our first responders everywhere around the world. Thank you for what you do, for keeping our municipality safe and sound, and for always being there in times of peril.
Absolutely. And thank you to all the active and past military personnel out there, their families, making the ultimate sacrifice, keeping everything cool for us. Thank you. Be safe out there. And we can't thank you enough. And we appreciate you every day.
Yeah, and to follow up with that too, every time I see a guy or a girl wearing like a Vietnam hat or a World War II hat, which I'm lucky enough to see a few, or some type of combat hat, I always stop and thank them. And they're so shocked that someone does that because they're not used to that, and that's really saddens me. That really is very sad when like our veterans come back from war or service. And they're wearing their hat and they're not praised or thanked. Now, maybe that's just me having a closed mind about things. Maybe there are more people out there like myself that do that. But I think everyone, and I encourage everyone listening, if you see a veteran wearing a hat or somebody who has served or looks like they've served, because they'll probably wear some type of paraphernalia that will demonstrate the mission that they served, thank them. Without them, we wouldn't have this platform. Freedom is not free. And we did an episode on that. Back in our catalog. So for all those listening, go check that out.
Yeah, it was a good one. Absolutely.
Well, Greggy T, we're going to talk about something that I get broached about a lot, and I have conversations with people about dating for both guys and girls. Now here comes the red button, the fire, right? We might see a mushroom cloud after this episode, but
oh boy.
We talk about dating and its complexities. like growing when we were hanging, back in the day, there was like the 3-day rule, right? That was
Yeah.
one we always heard about. Or treat the girl like garbage so you'll get her attention. And sadly, that actually worked. Or, other psychological tactics to engage the other party, whether it's a man or a woman, to kind of spark their interest. And I
Mm.
think nowadays with online dating and Facebook and other means of connecting with people, it's just complex. It's a complex thing, you know. How did we get to this point, Greg? Remember back, like was there ever a time where you think a guy could court a girl and it wasn't all like this noise in the way?
Mm, listen, I'm a dinosaur to this. So with all the online stuff, that's completely your department. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about this stuff, know nothing, which is whatever. But back in the day, we've said this a million times, you had to have game. You actually had to talk. Imagine that. Face to face talk, ask for a number, and communicate and be funny and witty and confident and all the things wrapped up in one. So I miss those days. I'm sure you do too, because everything now is hidden behind a keyboard or a phone or a computer or whatever. And it's just, I think it's way from what I hear from you and see from other friends of ours, it just seems so complicated now. And as easy as it is, it's harder, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's all about the law of numbers, right? If you think about it, a
Yeah.
lot of people, both guys and girls, I think you reach a certain point in your life where you know what you want, you settle down and whatnot. But it's like the law of numbers, right? If I click on 20 people, I get 2 or 3 people out of that, then that's a way of
Hmm.
sifting through the process. I don't normally do that. Um, I will admit though, sometimes when I do get isolated, I do get bored, and I do tend to go on certain apps because I am looking for a connection. I do want to connect with somebody, and sometimes the connections can be a detriment, and I have to be aware of that and
Yeah.
realizing that hey, there is a spiritual battle going on that's telling me to go do this. I know it sounds kind of weird, but for believers out there, they'll get it and they'll understand. Um, I also feel too that as you evolve as a person, your interests change, your needs change, your desires change. So then lies the outlook on dating. I think when you're younger, especially when we were younger, it was kind of a more of a freer, I was like a freer, almost like ambiguity, but almost a freer society with their sexuality in regards to, you meet someone at a club, you hook up, you go home, everything's cool. Nowadays, you go, you meet someone, and then if things don't work out, it could ruin your life. Or has that always been there, Greg? Or do you think, and I guess where I'm going with this, do you think times were it was easier back then in regards to, hooking up and maybe having a one night stand or maybe doing something, you know, that would elicit like a promiscuous behavior?
I don't know. I think it's always been there.
It's always been that.
I just think it's framed differently now. I think it's more accepted now with social media because you have all these channels and stuff that girls talk about. The big thing is what's popular is the girl's body count now and the guy's body count and all that shit. But I think it's just framed differently, but it's still the underlying. It's still the same thing, and I think it's. I'm not saying it's bad or good. It just is what it is. I think it's accepted, and it's always been accepted. It's just different framing now.
Yeah. And I feel like in your 20s, maybe you're looking for that for true love. I don't know. I feel like in your 30s you kind of figure it out. You're like, okay, in my 20s I had a good time. I partied, did this, I met a lot of people. In your 30s, like, okay, I'm starting to really evolve in my what I want in an ideal partner. And I think in your 40s you kind of figure it out. I feel like a lot of people get married way too young, or they get engaged way too young, and therefore that's where the problems lie. Do you agree with that? Do you think people should wait until their 30s to really find that partner, or is it all based? Is it all individual based?
I agree without the putting a numerical figure on it, like 20s, your 30s, your 40s. I agree with, I think people, I think it's individual, but I think people get married too soon. I'm not saying 20s is too soon or 30s is too soon. I think in general people will get married too soon without truly knowing that other person. And you can date for a year or two. That in my opinion that's not enough to truly know somebody. There's some people that been with somebody like 15 years and they're finding things out now that they didn't know about. So you never really know somebody unless you have the utmost communication, which is very rare. It's out there, but it's rare. And without the judgment, which we all have said and done. And I don't care what anybody, oh, I don't judge, I don't judge. It's a constant battle to try not to judge somebody because it's a double edged sword. Like we have all these experiences, thank God we do, but it also jaded us in a lot of ways and makes us very defensive and our walls are up and our trust is down and we think certain things are going on when maybe they're not, but that's just our experiences kicking in and it's a lot of different layers to this. So it's, I think, not a numerical figure, but I think people get married too soon. I think a lot of people get married to just check a box. They have their list and it's just going down, check, check, kids, check, summer house, check, but that's just things. It's not, there's no substance there if it doesn't mean anything to you.
When we project ourselves onto people and we present ourselves out in the world, obviously we take an onus of that responsibility. I know when you're younger, you want to be like the baller or the player, or
Mm,
maybe you're a character of or a figment of your imagination that you want out there because maybe you don't love or respect yourself and you want
hmm.
people to see like you're like this,
Yeah.
crazy carefree individual. But underneath the surface lies a very sensitive human being. How much of that is our fault in regards to, we hear it all the time. I can't meet this one. I can't meet that one. I can't seem to find the right guy. I can't find the right girl. How much of that is our fault?
I don't think it's all our fault because you can't control everything. You can only control what
Right.
you can. So you can't control if you're not meeting somebody. What you can control is maybe where you're going, how you feel about yourself, how you present, how what you're putting out there. Those things you can control. But outside of that, I mean, you can't control when or where or how you're going to meet
Right.
somebody. So I wouldn't focus on, oh, I can't meet anybody. Like that's just that sentence alone is putting bad juju out there in the universe. So just keep controlling what you control. I can get in shape. I can, get another job or make more money or do whatever. Those things I can control. I can have a clean apartment or a clean house or whatever and focus on the stuff you can and hopefully the person comes along. If people would do online dating, I get it, you're bored and stuff like that. I have friends up here that do it and it's a nightmare. And I have friends that are looking like there's a girl I know and all she wants to do is get married. That's all she wants to do.
Ugh.
And I'm like, then why are you on those sites? And she's going on a date with these people literally to marry. And I'm like, I don't, in my opinion, I don't think that's the right recipe for what you want, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been on a few Christian dating websites because you've like, all right, well, let me narrow down the pool and have that. But even though we're Christian, we're still broken. We still have faults. So it's kind of like
Everybody does.
it's the same type of like online environment in a way where you're still swiping right, swiping this, swiping that, swiping that.
Yeah,
So really, I miss the days of meeting people in person. And
of
in fact, when I
course.
when I get too isolated, I have to remind myself I got to go out and mingle. I got to go out and just if I just sit at a bar and order an appetizer, just so I can mingle and just talk to people. But I feel like since the pandemic, we've been so isolated, and now it's like the norm to work from home, or the norm to work
Yeah,
from a coffee shop, or the norm to work from somewhere where it's
yeah,
not you're not around people or structure.
yeah. That's contributed, I think, to the older age range. But now I think the younger kids coming up are all on their phones
Yeah.
and they're all on all these different platforms. And I don't know. I'm old. I don't get it. Why don't you just text or call the person? They're like, oh, I'll snap them, or oh, I'll this. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but like, why don't you just, it's the same thing as a text, right? They're like, no, it's different. My point is, they still don't interact with each other. They don't, okay, if I sit you guys at a table with no phones, and you can't get up and leave, how do you conduct yourselves? What are you going to talk about? How's that work? And it's very rare nowadays for guys to have game. You don't need game anymore.
Yeah.
People just meet up and do their thing. I'm not hating, but I'm just saying there's no skill set in that anymore. It's lost a whole skill now for dating, which to me that's sad. Sad.
Well, you and I are big fans of like romance and things in certain ways. And I think about the shows I watched growing up. We talked about this on prior episodes. Top Gun, right? How they fell in love. Or I'll look at like we like that movie Ghost of Girlfriend's Past. That movie's awesome.
Hmm.
That movie is it's such an underrated movie. It was so good. Like it was funny and drove home a point. But I don't know the romantic context these days because everything is just so black and white. It's so like we met in a chat room or we met on Match, we met on here. Like, I'm all for, like matchmakers, like setting someone up. I think that's a cool thing to do. But it's like I miss the romance. Do you think true romance really lives in today's world?
Me personally, yeah, but that's I don't know. I can only speak for other people. I can't speak for other people. I don't know. I don't if I had to guess, I don't think it's on the same level as it was,
Right.
but I kind of hope it's like that. I mean, that would be nice to think that it's still there, but I just think with all this technology and all the less face to face, the less true communication, I think it just starts to that gap widens. So I don't think it's as on point as it was.
You think people still hope for that like fate encounter, that chance encounter? Like you'll see something in a movie where like you're out with a group of friends and then this guy meets a girl and sparks fly and they pique each other's curiosity. Do you think guys and girls both deep down kind of like hope for that type of spark when they meet somebody? Like you're out at a bar and you're sitting there talking to someone and you're talking all night and like, you go for a walk and then you walk her to a car, you kiss her goodnight, and then you end up evolving into this like beautiful romance. Do you think people still aspire to have that? Or you think, like you said, it's a box check. Okay, we went out on 3 days. Greg's my boyfriend. All right, I'm going to move in with him in 6 months. In a year, we're going to be married. We're going to have kids. Blah 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 blah. Or do
I
you
think
think everything is so? Sorry, you think everything is so like box checking? Sorry.
I'm not going to say everything's box checking. I can't speak for everybody. I think there's still people out there that do hope for that, guys and girls. I'm sure. I mean, is it going to happen? It's less likely, I think, now in these times, but I still think there's people out there that are hoping for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I think I mean, me personally too. It's like like for me, if I meet someone at church, or I meet someone that's like not at a bar, like if you meet someone in a CrossFit class or you meet someone somewhere where it's like I'm not under the influence to meet. Like I always tell people, like, listen, I don't need to drink to hang out.
Yeah,
I'd rather go for a walk and I think in Florida, down by living down here, I think you have more of options to do that because it's
yeah,
always sunny out. You can go out and be active. And I think that's an attractive quality. I think when most people
yeah.
meet, it's like, let's meet for a drink or let's meet for this. I'm like, well, if I meet you for a drink, it's going to go one of two places,
Hmm.
you know?
But that's their
So,
comfort zone, and that's what they're used to. And there's also other factors in that as well. You don't know what their underlying intentions are, because that's a whole other dark alley we could go down. I'm trying to avoid that
well,
based off past experiences where somebody's acting all sweet and innocent, meanwhile they're doing 15 different things behind your back. And I'm
right.
not saying it's bad. I'm just
We've
saying
all
that
been there. Yeah.
happens. It happens. And I know girls, friends of mine, that just crush dudes crush them. Like they string him along like he's a nice guy, and he thinks he's like, chilling with a nice girl. Meanwhile, she has like five different guys on rotation when he leaves. Like, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying, poor guy that thinks it's not his fault. He's naive. It's not real world. There's always something going on.
So here's another question for you. When you meet someone, right, and you're hanging out, everything's going great, and then you notice the communication starts to wane to the
Patterns,
point where you get like ghosted, right? I
patterns,
think
man.
you and I have always agreed on this. It's all about consistency, right? Just be consistent with
Hmm.
your communication. I don't think that's a lot to ask. But here comes
Yeah.
the argument. Do people really owe us an explanation?
No, nobody owes
So,
anybody anything.
right.
No, I don't. I wouldn't want somebody to think that of me. I'm not gonna make them. They don't owe me anything. However, I do believe in consistency and patterns, and I always put myself in the other person's shoes. Like, would it be cool if I reached out now? Would it
Right.
be cool if I didn't reach out now? Usually, if you don't want to be treated a certain way, then just don't do it to the other person. But in my opinion, that's a huge red flag. When patterns change out of the blue,
Yeah, yeah.
it's usually not good.
Yeah.
And usually, I mean 99.9% not good. So just be aware of that.
And it's really weird too, because you figure at a certain point as you get older, it just be like, hey, listen, Greg, it's just not, I just don't see us together. I don't see us working out. Take care and have a great one. You know what I
Take
mean?
care.
Take care, kiddo. Right.
Hmm.
So it's like, why do
Hmm.
you think people, why can't people do that these days? Why? I mean, even though they don't have to, it would be nice if they could just say, hey, listen, this ain't going to work. Instead of just like completely like ghosting you or not even responding to a message, which is kind of rude. I mean, it could be perceived as rude. Why not just say, hey, listen, it's just not going to work out? Why do people tend to shy away from that?
Do you want to know the, like, in my opinion, the hard answer?
Of course.
Because people want something on safety. They want to fall back just in case until they fill their roster. That's what I think at the end of the day. They just want to hold on to it just in case for that rainy day or that other person's not available. This person's here. I that's my opinion. My opinion.
Yeah. I think it's kind of indicative of society. I think people shy away from accountability. It's a lot easier to ignore someone than to say, hey, listen, it's just not working out.
They shy away from accountability, and everyone judges. And judgment is, in my opinion, the kiss of death on open communication.
Yeah.
It really is. People are always afraid. Guys and girls are afraid to be judged, so they don't open up 100%. Therefore, you're not opening up 100%. You're leaving some things back. The other person's doing the same thing. So think about it. If you have two people, right? You have a guy and a girl,
Right.
and they're both 100%. But this person's afraid to telling this person, like the guy's afraid to tell the girl something, so he's gonna hold back. The girl's probably afraid to tell the guy something, she's holding back. So now they're coming together at 80% each, and they might have great communication, but
Mhm.
they're not giving each other 100% due to the fear of being judged.
Right.
If if that didn't happen, if that wall of judgment wasn't there, and this guy was like, "Hey," boom, and the girl's like, "Oh, hey, I want to tell you this," without judgment, like pure no judgment, then I think it has the potential to have the craziest, strongest foundation. And if they really, were compatible, sky's the limit with them.
Yeah.
Straight up, straight up. I think nothing can get in their way. Nothing. It's the judgment, it's the stigmas and society puts on things. And that's all noise and bullshit. If you can talk to your girl, or if a girl could talk to their guy and just lay it all out there and not be judged, they don't have to agree with it. That's the thing. Judgment's not agreeing. I don't agree with a lot of shit, but I also don't judge it. It's cool. Fine. No problem. I wouldn't do it, but okay. And there's plenty of things they probably wouldn't have done that I did. As long as there's no judgment, yeah, we're good. But it's so rare to have that. And that I think is the keys to the castle.
Speaking of judgment, we'll often see an older guy with a younger girl. Sometimes we'll see a younger guy with an older woman. Or sometimes we'll see a girl with a guy who, by looking at first glance, doesn't seem to fit the mold for that person. And we're so quick to
Mm.
judge other people that are
We
together.
all do it. We all do it.
But why do you think we do that, though? Speaking about judgment, like why is it that we see a young girl with an older guy, we automatically assume there's money involved?
Because usually that is the case to some degree. We shouldn't judge, but we do. But the judgment's based off of statistics. Statistics are there. We know plenty of girls that do this. We have friends that do this. I get it. But some don't care to be judged, and others are like, I can't believe they said that. Are they wrong? She's like, no. And I'm like, okay, then what do you care? What do you care? So it's a tough one. We all do it.
Do you think it's a battle between what our values are and what society's values that are cast upon us?
Yeah. And I don't,
Say,
I'm not a, yeah, 100%. And I think society, what they put on us is bullshit. But it's just that's the norm because that's what's just passed on again and again and again in society. You should do this. You shouldn't do this. You should do this. Oh, they have this. That must mean that. And all these things, which are all false. But that's what people just keep spinning instead of just sticking to their personal moral or whatever the case may be and pushing society. I think that gets in the way. I really do.
yeah, you got to be strong in your convictions. I think that's one thing I've learned as I've gotten older. Like you can't really compromise.
No,
If
non-negotiables. Nope.
we talk about that all the time, and I think that
Hmm.
can help make dating less complicated. Like if you meet a girl and she's got this, and this, but she doesn't like cats, well, it's probably not going to work because my cat was here before you, or you meet somebody like when you were single and you had your stuff before you got married, ding ding ding, and like, it's probably not going to work. But we tend to often compromise because we don't want to be alone. Or we're like, oh, well, maybe, the more we hang out, she'll conform or he'll conform or something like that. Do you think conformity is a good thing? Or do you think being a
Hmm.
nonconformist to the other person is something that should be maintained?
That's a tough one. That's a great question. It's a
Third cup
great
of coffee,
question.
pal. And it's all with the Pete's coffee.
Is conforming good? I want to say I want to say yes, but if you look at the definition purely, no, because if you're conforming, then maybe you're not being true to your own bottom line. Maybe you're sacrificing your vision, morals, moral code, moral fiber, whatever, your non-negotiables. That I think is not good. But if it's a softer, but yeah, no, I'm gonna say no. It's not good. I'm sticking to that because it's always gonna be there. Is my point. It goes back to like the no judgment stuff. You may conform, but it's always gonna be there underneath the surface. And maybe one day you're not going to be happy in a situation and that's going to rear its head and that's going to be add fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, it's been there and it was your choice the whole time. So it's tricky, man. What do you think about that conforming?
Well, I think there's a difference between conforming and adapting. I think
Yes.
if I brought a non-believer into my world, and they're open to going to church or trying to become more live along those lines, I think that's great. Um, I think I wouldn't want to conform to anyone, especially at this phase of my life. I think
Definitely.
there should be a complementary aspect to it. It's like a yin and yang, like peanut butter and
Hmm.
jelly, or it's
Hmm.
like any type of like complementary stuff.
Hmm.
Like my life should complement theirs and vice versa. If there's
Yeah,
no complementary feeling there or trajectory, then I'd be a fool to stay in that because I've been a fool and stayed in things longer than I should have.
we all have.
And I think as we get older, It's very abundantly clear exactly what I'm looking for. And I
Yeah.
think it's very easy for us to get clouded based upon whether we know someone for 25, 30 years from our childhood, or we
Mm-hmm.
have a relationship with them back from like an old person we used to work with, or
Mm-hmm.
like, no matter what our personal history is with someone, we can't let that cloud our perspective because,
Mm-hmm.
I linked up with a girl who like I was in love with in the fifth grade. And maybe she's listening, so she knows who she is. And fifth grade, like, I was in love, like love this girl. She was just awesome. And I never asked her out. And then we connected again on Facebook, probably back, well, I can tell you, probably 15 years ago. And it was awesome. It was so like emotional. It was like one of the most amazing weekends I ever had with anyone. And we just reconnected and bonded. But after that wore off, I realized we were just two different people.
Mm.
Like I was not even close to having the mental capacity for a relationship because I didn't want that. But
Yeah.
yet I thought about it, but also too, when I sat back, we just were just different. We had just different, like she
Yeah.
wasn't the girl that I knew in fifth grade or in high school, and I sure as heck wasn't. But
Yeah.
at my core and at my essence, I'll always be that. Like I'll always love that girl, and she knows who
Yeah.
she is. I'll always love her. There'll always be a place for her in my heart because we go back so many years. But I would not have wanted her to conform to my way of life, and I wasn't going to conform to like her way of life or
Let me
what
ask
she
you
thought.
this though, with
Yeah.
that being said, do you think people can be together successfully that are different or have
Yes.
different outlooks and views?
Yes. It all comes down to communication.
Yep, I agree.
I do believe that. We've
Mhm.
had friends that have different political beliefs, and they got along great.
Yeah,
And I think, and that's the way you want someone to be their own person.
of course.
Like I would not want to date or marry a carbon copy of myself.
No.
However, what I'd like to have is someone that complements my lifestyle, whether it's politics or fitness and finance and other things.
Yeah,
Because
it's like
we
a
all,
nice challenge.
it's a nice challenge, but it's a nice compliment. And I'll go back to that term because as we always talk about like building each other up, right? Like your partner should build you up, right? You
Mhm.
build your partner up, you should build your partner up. There are vows that taken in marriage, or when you're in a relationship, you kind of know, like, hey, I got your back, babe, don't worry about it. Or hey,
Yep.
Mike, don't worry about it, I got your back. It should never be like, well, if you do, if there should be no contingencies, right? If you make $250,000 a year, I'll stay with you. Be like, no, it
Mhm.
doesn't work like that. Or if you get fake implants, then I'll be with you. So I think the onus kind of comes upon ourselves and we always say take stock or take inventory of yourself and realize if I get, let's just say, like, okay, so I'm not ripped, right? So I go on, I'll do a cycle of something, or I do something and I
Yes.
get ripped, right? Is it something I really want to do? No. But if I do it to impress a girl, like, yeah. So you're doing things for the wrong reasons. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do something. I would never ask somebody to do something. Well, I mean, I'm into natural stuff anyway, but I would never ask someone to do something that they don't want to do just to appease me. Cause it's like, if I don't
Yeah.
love you or like you for who you are, then I have no business being with you. And why would you want to stick around in the first? Why would you want to be with somebody that doesn't like love and respect you, or even not? I'll go a step further, that you have to like compromise yourself for. It doesn't make any sense.
You said it. You guys got to build each other up, but also rely on each other when times are tough.
No
And
one
I'm
does
not
that
talking,
anymore.
no, very rare. I'm not going to say zero, but very, very rare. Usually, when shit gets hard or finances get down, people skip out and they check out. Yo, I'm out of here. Peace.
Deuces.
Girls do it all the time. Guys do it too, I guess. But that's when you need that person to lean on. And I'm not talking financially lean on them, but the old mentality, guys are providers and blah blah blah. Okay, well, we have a bad week or month financially. Okay, in the grand scheme of things, is that the end of the world? No. Maybe to them it is, but instead of bashing them or holding their head underwater longer because they're already fucking drowning. Why don't you throw them a life preserver and say, hey, it's all good? Is there anything I could do to help? A simple question like that can raise a guy up and the guy's back in the fight. It's insane. A simple gesture, or just if a guy knows his girl has his back, no questions asked.
It's amazing.
I wouldn't know, but I'm saying it
Makes two
would
of us,
be
pal.
amazing because once again, keys to the castle. But that has to do with the judgment. See, that judgment creeps in on so many different areas. This is another one where it comes in like, oh, I can't ask her for help because she'll judge me. Yeah, that's, you don't want to be there. Sorry, you don't want to be there. It's
Nope.
not that hard. Like I rather be poor and happy. I say it all the time.
It's
And I went to school in Boca. I wanted a whole different lifestyle back in the day. I get like what you were saying, when we were younger, we wanted so many things and to go here and to be seen that. Man, I don't care about any of that anymore.
right. But you've
But
also
it's
evolved as a person.
of course, and I know what I'm way older now, and I also know what I want and definitely what I don't want. And it's amazing that it's so hard to have two people have each other's backs no matter what, no questions asked. Literally no matter what. What the hell happened? It's wild.
So how do you prevent growing apart from someone?
Just
If
don't be
you're
with anybody. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
not wrong.
No, it's an equation. It's just math. What was the question? Sorry.
How do you prevent? Do you think there's a way to prevent from growing apart with somebody? Like, or do you think if you're going to grow apart from somebody, maybe a lot of these underlying values or underlying
Mm.
beliefs come to the surface over time?
They'll always come through. It's the old thing. You sweep it under the rug, it'll come up the other side. They'll eventually show themselves. It might not be for a very long time, years and years and years and years. They'll always show themselves. Is there a way to prevent it? I don't think you could prevent it, but I think you can try to minimize by openly talking about it. But
Right,
that takes two people. That's the
right,
problem. One might be willing to talk about it and want to talk about it and want to fix or solve or at least, better it, get a solution. But you need that same exact energy from the other person. And usually that doesn't align and that's not going to work.
right.
Not going to work. So I don't think you could prevent it. The only way you could prevent it is really getting to know somebody, taking the time. Time tells all. Now, we know you don't want to date somebody for 15 years if you're looking to get married, like that's a long time, but you got to ask yourself, this is my opinion, you got to ask yourself, is there the non-judgment no matter what? And you'll know
True.
right away because there are certain topics that are heavy for people to talk about. Hit them with it and see how it lands. And if it lands with some sort of judgment or whatever, there's your answer right there.
Yeah,
Right there.
and you got to have the strength to walk away.
Of course.
You got to, no matter how attractive that person is, or no
Yeah.
matter the chemistry you
Yeah.
have to walk away.
Hmm. I agree.
Because if you don't, it's going to just ruin you emotionally, financially. It's going
Hmm.
to ruin every aspect of your life.
Yeah, and it can also prevent you from being with the person you're supposed to be with because you're
Right.
wasting your time putting on a show with this person when you should just be yourself and
Exactly.
maybe be with that person.
Exactly.
It's this is a very, very complicated topic that not a lot of people dive into the depths of it, and you get into the realm of like therapy and all these other things. Like I'm open-minded. I'm cool with therapy, whatever. I know you are too. But to a certain extent, you still have to make your own choices at the end of the day. It's great to
Right.
get, insight on things, but at the end of the day, it's your decision. You have to make the best educated decision for yourself. Some people
Right.
aren't capable of that. So you can't fight those battles. You'll never win.
Yeah. And I think it's also having the discipline of not straying away from what you want. Because I said this earlier, and I'll always say this in conversations like this. There are spiritual battles that we fight, spiritual warfare we fight every day, whether it's insecurity, whether it's a feeling of not being good enough, self worth, self love. There's so many spiritual battles, and there's so many. I'll say it: the enemy comes at you in any way. Like,
Hmm.
Greg, this is all you're meant for. This is all you're going to deserve. You can't
Hmm.
do better than this, or you're going to be alone for the rest of your life. You're this, you're that, and sometimes we get caught up in it and
Yeah.
we believe it, and that will allow us to make choices that allow us to make mistakes and sin, and we try to learn
Yeah.
from it, but sometimes it's a vicious cycle. So I think people need to be aware of the fact that you have to have the discipline to not go down the road. Now if you're looking for a hookup, that's one thing, but if you're looking
Yeah.
for a relationship and actually spend time with someone,
Hmm.
then you have to have the discipline to say, hey, you know what, like, I'm not going to do anything physical with someone, or I'm going to wait until you feel right, whatever it is, that whatever your
Hmm.
beliefs are. But we often lack discipline as a society. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, of course. Everyone wants that instant gratification, satisfaction. Nobody wants, not nobody, most people don't want to put the work in. You can relate it to any field, business, working out. Like, oh, I want to look good, but you're not working out. So how do you expect to look good? I'm talking like physically. I want to get stronger. Okay, like physically stronger. How do you do that? You have to work out to get physically stronger. Like, you can't just sit there and do it. I don't know. People don't want to put the work in.
Does social media also too play a role in the way people look at things, like
Of
how a girl's
course,
supposed to look, a guy's
of
supposed to
course.
look, how a girl's supposed to act,
As
a
soon
guy's
as
supposed to act?
100%, and it's fucking poison in my opinion, and it's poisoned the youth, and it's desensitized them to a lot of shit. And I also think when a girl, and I'm using girls as an example, if a girl's
Mm.
on Instagram and she's looking up, I don't know, whatever they look up, the algorithms are working in that background right there. So
Yeah.
now her feed is going to be all these things. And
Right. Right.
now, and for someone that spends their time on the phone, half hour here, an hour here, an hour there, next thing you know, and every phone does this, you spend 4 hours on social media this week. If those 4 hours you're consuming pure trash, part of that's your reality because that's your life
Yep.
every day. So
Yep.
it desensitize you, and it kind of skews your vision and your norm. So now you may think that's normal and it's not real world, but now you're comparing real world guys to these situations and these television shows you watch or whatever you stream, the movies, the music, and it's all not good in my opinion. Social media is horrible for this. Horrible.
Yeah, and we got to take responsibility ourselves to really kind of mitigate what we expose ourselves to on social media. I know for myself personally, like,
Hmm.
a lot of things I followed, even friends I had, I just stopped following because they're in revealing clothing, and I don't want to look at them, in revealing clothing, because it's going to kind of frame the way I look at them in real
Mm.
life. And I think, I get it when you're in fitness or you're modeling or yoga, whatever it is that you do, that, if you've got the body, flaunt it, right? I always say, good for you, congrats, it's
Hmm.
awesome. Or if it's like a science thing and you're trying to like demonstrate like an exercise, you totally get it. But when it comes to the point where it becomes more suggestive and you're supposed to be, in a, whether it's fitness or anything else, I tend to stop looking at things that's going to cause my mind and my brain to wander. And I think that's one of the first things you can do. That's just me personally. I think, like, if you want to mitigate your yours you said like sensitivity to things, then you got to stop looking at things that's going to allow you to think a certain way. Like, if I watch reality shows all the time, I'm gonna
Yeah,
start thinking like that. That's all
of
I'm
course.
conditioning my brain to. If I condition my brain to look at positive things or messages about spirituality or looking at like the deeds that people do, well, I'm more likely going to want to repeat that, or it's more likely going to send positive, um, you know, energy through my body. Is that fair? Safe to say, Greg?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of that. When I used to do big speeches in front of the agents, a couple days before when I'm preparing, instead of like listening to music on the way to the gym or whatever, I would listen to like a motivational speaker or listen to something that's stimulating business, brain, speech, communication, uplifting, because I think just by osmosis, it really can affect your energy. And then when it's
I
time to
agree.
go and you're in front of people, it hits and you can see a huge difference in how it lands and how you feel. And people really get into it and they feed off your energy. And if you've consumed some good stuff those past couple days, that's great. But if you're watching the same garbage every day, shitty, not music, but like shitty shows and Instagram and all these toxic things that aren't real, how are you going to be on your best? I don't know how that's possible.
You said the proper adjective, energy. Life's all about energy, right? If you put it out
It
there, you
is.
just want to hook up, you're gonna find someone to hook
Of
up with.
course. Of
You want to
course.
find a relationship, you're gonna find a relationship. It's all
Yeah.
about the energy and what you put out there.
Yeah.
And we went down so many different rabbit holes today, Craig.
Yeah.
Give us a
It's
final
the
synopsis. Wrap this up for us. Like, give us your final thoughts and your final synopsis of dating and the complications that go along with it.
if if you know what you want, then do the work to get what you want. If you just want to hook up, okay. That's over here. If you're looking for a relationship or something more substantial, then you have to go down that road. And down that road is you have to know yourself and your limitations. You have to know what are your non-negotiables. You have to know what you're looking for in a partner. In my opinion, that no judgment is the key to everything. It's just so hard to find because everyone will talk shit and have a good game in the beginning. That's why time will tell. Like, oh, I won't judge. I'm not going to judge you. Right there, they're judging you. And then you hit them with something, and in their head, they're like, we've all done it. And if someone says they haven't done it, they're full of shit. We've
Right.
all done it. I've been at dinners in my dating life, and a girl will tell me something, and in my head, I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, damn. And then here comes, you can see the freight train of judgment coming to the front of my brain. I'm like,
Right.
oh, boy. Is that necessary? Probably not, because probably I've done it a million times and I wouldn't want her to do that to me. If I
Right.
said something I did, I don't want her to be like, whoa, okay, he's an asshole, whatever. So you have to be aware of that. And if you don't want to be judged, then don't judge somebody else. I'm
Right.
telling you, it's the keys to the castle, but it's very rare. What
Yeah.
about you? What do you think? Final
Well,
thoughts.
I think to keep dating less complicated, you got to keep it simple. It's like in business. There's so many ways to do it. You got to keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
If you want this, and this, and you meet someone that only has this and this, it's your choice to decide if you want to be with that person. Just know
That's it.
what you're getting into. Don't try to tell yourself anything different. Like they could be the nicest person in the world, but if the square peg is not going in the round hole, then you know what? No matter how beautifully shaped that piece of the puzzle is, it's not the right fit, and it's going to
That's
screw
right.
up the whole puzzle.
That's right.
So you have to have the discipline within yourself to not adapt to conform to something that it goes against what you're looking for. It all depends on you. I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to us. Whether we think we're cursed or whether we think we've got all the stuff going on, at the end of the day, it comes down to us. And
Mm-hmm.
for people like I think a lot of people, and I'll say it, I think a lot of girls misconstrue financial security with emotional security.
Absolutely.
Men are great providers. Yes, that's what typically a man's supposed to do. But how many people have we known that didn't have the emotional security? They had everything in the world: boats, cars, planes, houses, trips here, trips there, but they're left home alone, like you would
Crying.
leave a cat or a dog.
Crying. Crying at home, miserable.
But you got
Crying in
all
a
this material
20
things,
room mansion, a 20,000
right?
square foot house, crying. Miserable.
Right. And then what
And meanwhile, there's
happens?
a line of girls that want that until they have it. And then they're miserable too.
So I think
Some
for
are,
and
some aren't. Some want
some are
that and they're okay like that. They're fine.
right, and then
Mm-hmm.
we often know what happens when they're in that situation.
Whatever. Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. But I
Leave
think
leave your keys in the jar at Equinox. Yeah, I'll say it.
but I'll say this though. I'll say this though. I'll say this. I
Allegedly.
think allegedly, I think for girls out there, and I'll say this, you have to really make sure you understand the difference. Because are they one and the same? Sure, can be. You could meet a wonderful guy that's a provider, that's an awesome husband. Like you
Mhm.
have friends that are in a wonderful relationship, and they were both very successful attorneys, and they just got together and they're like, "Hey,
Yep.
this goes against our values." Can you find that? Sure,
Yeah.
it's out there. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but you have to really understand that money doesn't necessarily provide security.
Nope.
Money does not necessarily bring happiness. And I'm using this as an example because most girls that I've met and people in the feedback I'm sure will get, well, you're meeting the wrong girl. You're meeting the wrong girl. Blah, 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 blah. But
We've met all types.
it seems to be a repetitive pattern. And just
Mhm.
like most guys out there, like most guys tend to want to date the cheerleader or the model or this or that, like typically. And that might lead to something, again, that goes against your values because you're looking at one aspect because you're trying to satisfy your ego, knowing that maybe you have an attractive woman on your arm, or you can say that you've been with this person, but at the end of the day, that might not be the right fit. A woman, beauty, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be revered. That's right in the Bible. That's right in the Bible. So that's the only thing that I could say is it's let it be a cautionary tale. If money is your primary value, then that's good for you.
Go for it.
No problem. If
Mhm.
dating someone who is, maybe enhanced or may have this or that, that's aesthetically appealing, wonderful. You gotta have it. Like I'm not gonna date someone I'm not attracted to.
Of
But
course.
that's just as we get older and we get more wiser, it's really only a small part. Before it was
Physical
a big part.
attractiveness physical attractiveness is only one slice of the pie.
One slice of the pie, and there's still
And
7, 8
as you
slices
get
left.
older, the attraction you're gonna want those other slices, and if they're not there, they're not just gonna magically appear.
Well, we're talking about pizza, how much you love pizza. If attraction is one slice, and you've had that one slice of pizza, imagine like if you have 2 or 3 or 4, because now you've created a connection with that pizza because it tastes good. It
Mhm.
smells good. So what I'm saying is that
And you
when you meet
want that
someone,
pizza tomorrow and on the weekend and next weekend. It's how it
right,
is.
right,
It
because
sounds silly, but it's so true.
because it becomes you have an emotional connection because the
Yeah.
smell of that
It's a
pizza,
real connection.
it makes you happy, it brings you joy, but you also relate and connect. And I think we all, at the end of the day, we all want that connection of when, like, you can tell the difference between just a hookup and making love. There is a huge difference. 100
Or how about this? Can you
percent.
sit in the room for a couple hours with that person and not want to kill them? Can you talk to them? Can you talk about anything? Can you have a good time? If you're stuck in an elevator, like those are simple questions, but you can get a lot answered by thinking about that.
And hence why dating is very complicated these days. It's not like it was back in the 80s when you could watch John Cusack say anything and hold a boombox outside of a girl's bedroom and play In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel, and all of a sudden sparks fly. Or in Family Ties, where Michael J. Fox could drive
Hmm.
300 miles to the train station and wait for the girl he loved to get off the train and profess his love to her. It's like, I miss those days, honestly. I really do, because I'm a romantic guy, and I miss the
Yeah.
days of that type of chivalry, that type of like pursuit. Now it's just more contractual. I feel like it's just more like,
Chivalry is not even
you know,
understood anymore.
oh,
Not
jeez.
anymore. Most don't even get it. So when you do it, you look weird, or they give you a look like, "What are you doing?" Like, "What am I doing? I'm doing what I'm taught. I was taught this, and I was shown this, and this is actually the right thing to do." But I don't need a man. Okay.
Well, look at Top Gun, dinner
Hmm.
8 p.m. sharp. Right now, you don't see that anymore. Now you get like an email or a DM.
Yeah.
Text me.
Please. Please.
Is your profile real? It's, that's why dating is complicated in the 21st century. And I hope that I've been able to, in Greg and I have been able to share our perspectives. And again, these are our opinions and they're meant for dialogue. So I'm sure some of the feedback that we get might be a little, escalated this week because maybe we hit the wrong people, hit the emotions in
I don't
people.
think so. I think we
But
provided some value and some food for thought for people if they're not getting what they're looking for, to maybe look within and see what's up.
you only live once. And if you're
Yeah,
not happy with something or someone and you're not living your full potential, then you got to have enough strength and discipline to say, hey, I need something different. And it doesn't matter how
eject.
old you are.
Hit the eject button.
Hey,
That's
listen,
it.
there are people in their 60s that figure this out and then they fall in love. And you know what? They live. I would rather live 3 years in love with somebody that I was supposed to be with than 30 years with somebody that I just settled for. But that's
It's
just
good.
me.
It's a good way to end it. I like that. I like it.
Well, Greggy T, another great episode, sir.
Yeah, man. All
We
good.
know your coaching business is taking off. If people want to find you out there or inquire about your services, where do they find you, sir?
Forever Progress, LinkedIn, Instagram, foreverprogress.com. Just hit me up. A lot of people are finding me on LinkedIn, like I've been saying. So, I'm helping Florida, Arizona, Connecticut. And I don't care what state you're in, it's all the same when it comes to real estate. You just got to adapt to your local market, which I can help you do, and get a nice injection of confidence, because that's all you need. And you're off and running.
2 CCUs of confident a day and donate
That's
blood
it.
every other couple of weeks, and you're good to
Ugh.
go.
Yeah. Go donate blood.
Donate blood. But anyway, this is an awesome episode.
Yeah, it was
We
good.
are we're starting to get knee deep in May. For all the mothers out there that are coming up, have a happy Mother's Day because this is going to drop actually on Mother's Day. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, you all had a wonderful Mother's Day here that celebrate Mother's Day in the States. And remember, we got 6 more months to the election, so just make sure whatever you do, make your vote count.
Happy Mother's Day to your mother.
Mm.
And happy Mother's Day to my mom, the original Mrs. T. And happy Mother's Day to all our friends out there that are moms.
Yes, and a very special happy Mother's Day to Carol T.
Yeah. There you go.
And we hope to see you soon.
Yep. I'll be down.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, man.
From the free state of Florida, I'm going to sign off. God bless everyone.
Take care, everybody. Thanks again.